Okay, so I am interviewing my mom for the project, the interview, and let's start off with the first question. Do you remember the blackout of 1963?
I was not born in 1963. By the way, my name is Karen Ciernak.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah.
I was not born in 63. I was born March 27th, 1965.
Okay, so then you don't remember what it was like when JFK became president then?
No, I don't remember any of that, and he was assassinated again, before I was born.
Oh. So then how were women and minorities treated in the 1960s?
I guess not as good as they are now. I think I was very young at the time to remember any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my school being fairly, I guess, homogeneous, you would say. We didn't have a large mix of different kinds of people.
Right.
I don't think I could really answer that question.
Do you remember what it was like when the first man walked on the moon?
Yes, that is the one 1960s big event that I do remember. I was 4 years old at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents had just purchased their first house, their only house, and they still live in it. My mom is still there. My dad was there till the day he died. And I remember that summer, they were moving into the house, and they were painting the house, putting primer on the walls. And the first thing they moved into the house was the Zenith television, a black and white television. They plugged it in and they adjust the antenna so we could see the moon landing. And I remember being a little kid, and my parents were putting primer on the walls, and that one television was the only thing in the room. There were no other objects because they were painting. And I kept running to the front window of the house and looking up at the moon and saying, I don't see them. Where are the astronauts? I kept looking up at the moon. I thought I was going to see them up there. I couldn't understand why. But every time I smell paint, I think of astronauts to this day.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, like, the feeling when Nixon was elected?
I remember my parents watching TV and a lot of people holding signs and a lot of balloons and speeches. I do know that Richard Nixon came to Long Island and he came to MacArthur Airport and gave a speech somewhere in my house, my parents' house. There's a Polaroid of the crowd, and he's in it, and he's really small. So that was really the first political rally I ever attended.
That's cool.
I think someone lifted me up on their shoulders so we could see him.
I never knew that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So do you remember any protests at all? Or
No, I
rallies?
do not. My parents were working. They were not college students. At that time, there were no college students in my family. And also, it was mostly girls. There were no men of draft age.
Right.
So no one was in college. No one was participating in protests at that time in my family. My father's family was all in Europe, so it was just one. I'm talking about my mother's side.
Uh-huh.
Really, that's all that was here.
What was it like when Martin Luther King died?
I do not know. I was 3 years old.
Okay.
So I do not recall hearing about that on the news or seeing people, crying. I know it was a terrible day.
Yeah. So tell about the Vietnam War and the overall effect on the country.
I guess there was a big effect on the country. I recall people talking about it even at a young age, and it seemed like such a faraway place.
Right.
But it did not have a direct impact on my immediate family. Like I said, there were no college-age males or females, and no one had been drafted. No spouses of the women in my family were drafted either.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Woodstock Festival?
Not at all. Again, I was 4 years old in 1969. My parents had jobs and they were not big concert goers.
Yeah.
No. No.
Well, thank you so much. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's that.
Thank